Yay Networks.
Welcome to the Great Girlfriends podcast, where we discuss life, love, laughter, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sybil, and I can't wait for you to hear all of the Great Girlfriend magic on today's show. So without further ado, grab something great to drink, grab your pen and your paper, and get ready for this week's episode. Enjoy! Hey, Great Girlfriends, and happy Wednesday. This episode is dedicated to every single foodie, food lover. I'm a closet chef. I'm a wannabe chef. I'm a weekend chef. I'm a great girlfriend, time with friends type chef. But to every single one of us who loves the art of food and also loves a great recipe and wants to incorporate some of the world's most renowned recipes into our ordinary lives, while also figuring out how to do that for our families. So in the spirit of back to school, in the spirit of getting the kitchen nice and tight for this school year and for even our back to routine time, because many of us are returning back to offices, and in the spirit of meal prepping foods that we can actually love, like, and maybe eat the leftovers on, I thought it would be great to bring on an amazing woman who is a recipe developer and blogger, Laney Schwartz. Hi, Laney.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. This is going to be so fun.
It is my absolute pleasure to have you. When I read about what you do, I was like, she does everything that I don't do, that I probably
That you
should
want
do.
to? No, maybe if you want to, I can help you, but there's no should here. It's okay.
You know what? You're absolutely right. Okay, so there's no shit, so there's no shame there. So, because
Yep.
I'm more of a I like to eat the food, don't like to cook the food kind of girl, right?
Uh-huh. Yep.
And then life hit me, like having kids and having a
Mm,
family and wanting to have the absolute best foods in front of them. I realized my formula wasn't working anymore of
mm,
just kind of eating the food and not cooking the food. I now have
right.
to get in front of everything that I do. So I really love people like you who like to be in the kitchen, who who have a home there, who love to, experiment and curate special dishes and even make that kind of expertise available to others like me.
Yes. Yes. I love it.
Yes. And you happen to be on the West Coast like me. So that gives us a little special 1-2 high five in the air
Yes.
for being West Coasters. So tell me a little bit, Lainey, about who you are, how you began your journey as a recipe developer, and what makes your passion for food and even the food psychology important to people like me.
Yeah. Great question. So I'm Laney. I am a food blogger. My food blog is called Life is But a Dish. And prior to getting into this space, I was an elementary school teacher. So I taught first grade for many years. And that is, and really was my first passion. And I've always loved food. I've always, like you, always loved eating. Grew up in a house with great cooks. And so I was never cooking as a kid, but I was always around my mom, grandparents, aunts, uncles who were always in the kitchen cooking. And then when I went out on my own in college, post college, I realized that nobody was cooking for me anymore. And I started to do it myself and I loved it. And I just kind of fell in love with cooking. I met my boyfriend at the time, who's my now husband. And then cooking for other people really became just so joyful for me. Um, at
Wow.
that time, I was teaching, and then I didn't really. So then I had kids, and once I had kids, like you said, everything kind of changes. So I was talking to someone yesterday who said the exact same thing. She was like, I lived off of cereal and frozen meals my whole life, and then I had a baby, and all of a sudden I want to cook and nourish and show
Hmm.
love in a different way for my family. So things really can change when you have a family. But I had my first daughter, and I stopped teaching at that point so that I could be home with her. And I discovered food blogs. And at that point, I was already taking pictures of my food for no reason, posting it on Facebook for no reason other than I enjoyed it. And I was cooking for friends, and I just loved it. And I loved sharing recipes, whether they were my own or whether it was from somewhere else. And I just found so much joy in that. And
Mm.
when I discovered food blogs and I realized, okay, I'm either going to go back to teaching or I'm going to try this thing that's apparently a job for people. People are
Yeah.
cooking recipes, taking pictures of their food and posting it on the internet. Like, how is that a thing? I didn't know anything about that. But this was almost 8 years ago, and I decided to give it a go. And 8 years later, here we are. It's really
Wow.
crazy. Yeah.
You know what I love about that is you kind of took the reins on your passion and realized that you want to spend and invest more time there. So many members of our Great Girlfriend community have either passion projects, they either have blogs, or they're early entrepreneurs, and they are navigating that beginning stage of, I like it here and I want to stay here. And then they're trying, and now they're building. So I love that you literally took it step by step, build by build, and now you have a really successful blog that walks us through our own independent food journeys. So, Laney, for me,
Yep.
I'm someone, and great girlfriends, yes, you're listening, but I did tell Laney earlier, I was like, this episode might just be about me for me. This might be is it a food intervention or food intervention or a
And you're
cook
not alone because
prevention?
I know everything you're about to say. I've heard it a million times. So you just say it, and I guarantee that there's going to be tons of other people who are in your same shoes.
Okay. Okay. So Laney, I love a great meal. I love a food experience. I love a dish that's prepared. I love courses and all the things. And when I get home, I feel so defeated because I can only make one or two courses. Now, I'm not a horrible chef. I actually can cook, but I don't like people to know because I don't like them asking me to cook their favorite dishes that I've made for them. It's like a secret. So it's no
Oh.
longer a secret. I've clearly exposed myself, but I don't like for people to call and go, "Are you making your mac and cheese?" I'm like, "That's too much pressure. I wanna make it when I feel good about it. I don't wanna make it when the phone calls hit." And I've also decided as a mom, this may be changing, but early years, I said, "I don't want my kids coming home from college and holding me hostage to a recipe that I made for them years ago because they're like, you made the mac and cheese different, or you don't cook the pasta the same. Added lemon. Why'd you cook the salmon? So I decided that I didn't want to be known for my foods. That's what I told myself. However, however, the more culinary experiences that I have and my children have, the more need I have to do better at home. But I don't even know where to start, like in terms of a kit. And I know that there are other listeners who are like, I probably think I have a starter kitchen, and I watch a cooking show, and I'm like, I am like I'm in pre-K when it comes to
Yep.
kitchens. So
Yep.
where do we start, and how do we get to a place where we can feel confident that we're all stars in our kitchen space?
Yep. It's a great question. And again, you are not alone in feeling all of those things.
I feel so
Um,
alone every night. There's no other mother with me. There's no other person.
Well, and that's the thing because, and this is not to, put shame on anybody else, but there's a million people out there. I'm just talking social media alone, where everyone's teaching recipes, right? Everyone's showing how to
Yeah.
make recipes. You can go on social media and find thousands of different people showing different recipes, but there's not very many people teaching people who feel like you, hey, these are the really basic steps that you need, and I'm going to
Yeah.
teach you how to do it and not make you feel like an idiot for even asking the question. Like you're
Yeah.
my favorite person to teach, the people who really are timid and a little bit afraid and maybe sometimes a little bit embarrassed about what they don't know. I
Yeah.
want those people to come to me. Like you're my people. So
Okay. We're in
what I kind of
class. Yeah.
we're in class. So I found an interesting comparison because as I mentioned, I taught first grade. And so what I do now is so similar to what I did in teaching first graders. These first graders come in, from kindergarten. Some of them know how to read, some of them don't. And a big thing in first grade is teaching kids to learn how to read. That is like the number one thing. And what I learned is that there's a few basic things that you have to teach them. And then really it's just all about practicing those skills and building their confidence. It's all about the confidence. And if there's a teacher who can provide a safe space for a kid to make mistakes and learn how to read, they're just going to build that confidence so much faster. And fast forward to just a couple of years ago when I had a friend who was similar to you, and she was like, I don't know how to do anything in the kitchen. Like it's embarrassing. I don't know how to make anything. I wouldn't even know where to start. It's so overwhelming. Can you can you come to my house and basically teach me just a few things? And
Yeah.
that's where the idea came to basically create. I have a course called Cook with Confidence, where it's for people like that, or it's for people who are cooking but are so tied to a recipe that they could never make a swap or change things out. And if they don't have one ingredient, they freak out and just leave it. So for people who are just So they don't really have the freedom in the kitchen. It's for that type of person.
I love
And
that, the freedom in the kitchen. That
yes,
is the key.
yes, and
Yeah.
it's all about teaching techniques. I use recipes to teach, but it's all about the technique so that when you see the technique out in the real world or out in a video or in a recipe, you have the knowledge and the confidence to make a change or change the temperature on your oven or um, swap out this ingredient. So again, I try to create the safest space for people, and I want all of your stupid questions that you're too afraid to
Yeah.
ask. That's
Okay,
what I'm here
so
for.
what are our starter tools? Like, if I wanna be a confident cook and I wanna be able to follow recipes, there's even language where I'm like, I might be searing salmon, but I don't know if I'm searing
Don't know.
salmon and
Uh-huh.
but it
Yep.
tastes good. I don't know what I'm
Yep.
doing. I'm just doing. So,
Yep.
like, what are the starter tools for, beginner cooker 101 and what the things that we need to really ensure we're able to kind of flex between recipes and flex
Mhm.
between cooking styles?
So I actually start with the program with actual tools. So it's all about a kitchen audit. So before you even get the right physical tools in your kitchen, you really have to get to know your kitchen. So for some people, even walking into the kitchen is overwhelming. Maybe that's the case for you, maybe not. But like they don't know where things are, or they have way too many knives, or way too many pots and pans, or a pantry full of things that they don't use, expired spices, things that it's just cluttering and overwhelming the space to begin with. So really starting with like a kitchen audit, going through your things. You don't need 12 pots and pans. You don't need more than one really good chef's knife. You don't need 1,000 spices. You need a handful of a few things that you can use over and over again in different ways. And so that is something that I really kind of go deep into. But also understanding the different types of pots and pans. So the difference between stainless steel, non-stick, cast iron, like what do any of those mean and how do they work in the kitchen? So again,
Yeah.
if you don't understand that, you're already 10 steps behind. But if you understand how to use a stainless steel pan properly, it's actually really simple. Nobody just has told you how to do it. Um, so setting yourself up in the kitchen, I feel like is really important. Having a good knife is top priority because so many people get so frustrated with just the prep process of cooking because it takes so long or it's too
Yeah.
difficult, and it's often because they're using a wrong knife, usually one that's too small and or not sharp. And that right there is just it ruins the
Frustrating.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
frustrating. Yeah.
Huh.
So
So having a kit. So really first, great girlfriends, we have to do an audit. Like we have to take a look at what's in our cabinets, what's in our pantries, to see what tools are old or just not even useful to this stage of life. That's so good because I had a old fry daddy when I moved and I was like, how did you move 3 houses with me? I don't even know
yeah.
how
Yeah.
how it boxed and made its way all the way to California, but it
Yeah.
died here. And I got another tool that's even better. But we're also in a space, Lainey, where we want to know what's healthiest, like what's the most healthy, what are the healthiest tools for our body, meaning like what metals should we stay away from, and learning what materials are best to cook with, and those things, and that can you can sell a girl like me almost anything if you tell me that it's healthier, that it's gonna reduce the amount of metal intake or all those things. So how do we know how to navigate that space?
It's so hard, honestly. The good and the bad with social media and the internet is that there's so much information out there. But at the same time, there's so much information out there. So it's like, where do you begin? And that's exactly what I do. I really kind of curate all the crazy information about pots and pans, about knives, about chicken, about fish, and curate it down for the everyday home cook because we don't need to go to you don't need to go to culinary school to be successful in the kitchen to make delicious dishes. So how to navigate it? Honestly, I think the best thing to do is to find just a, maybe a few people that you really trust in this space, whether it's a professional chef, whether it's somebody like me who's just self-taught and a home cook, and listen to them and do what they do. I learned how to cook strictly from watching Ina Garten on the Food Network 10 years ago. I fell in love with her style, the way that the ingredients she used, the dishes that she made. It just really it spoke to me. I wasn't a Tyler Florence girl. Like there's all the different chefs that just didn't do it for me, but she really spoke to me. And so when I would watch her cook, I felt like, "Ah, I can do that." And oh, okay, that's the pan that she has. I'm gonna get that one. Nowadays with social media, you can actually reach out and send a DM to somebody and ask them a question. So I'm always welcoming those sorts of questions. If you're looking for, a specific type of pot or pan, I just had someone reach out yesterday about she wanted to transition to a healthier pots and pans. She had ceramic, but she wanted to know about stainless steel, and I'm too afraid to cook with it. And so you can reach out to people that, welcome these types of conversations, or you just go to Google. But again, it's a lot of information to
Yeah, so
process.
no, for you, what do you recommend? That's what I wanna know. I
Oh,
wanna
what
know
do I
what
recommend?
you
Yeah.
recommend. Yes. I
So
know that we could Google and we could search, but
yeah.
what are the like, what do you recommend as a best practice there?
So stainless steel is going to be hands down great for everything. It's amazing for everything. You'll have them forever if you know how to use them properly, which I can tell you just in a couple of seconds, just a couple of quick tips. But stainless steel is the best. It heats evenly, it cooks your food evenly, it can go from the stovetop into the oven. You don't have to worry about any, things leaching or scratching off the surface. They're the best. I've had my stainless pots and pans for over 15 years and they're in perfect condition.
Wow.
So
Wow,
those
nice.
are gonna last you.
Yeah.
Cast iron would be another great option that is super inexpensive and will last you forever as well. But people are often afraid of stainless steel because they like the non-stick of like, the non-stick pots and pans that where nothing sticks to them. But stainless steel really is non-stick if you know what you're doing. So I don't know, maybe you know this, maybe you don't. Maybe a lot of your listeners know this, maybe they don't, but you always preheat a pan dry. So before you even put anything in it, preheat your stainless steel pan, medium high heat. Let that get going and get nice and hot for 1 to 2 minutes. Then add your cooking fat, then add your food. Nothing will stick every
Huh.
time. Just a
I did
really
not know
simple.
that.
There you
Yeah.
go. Learn
Okay.
something new. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just
Interesting.
kind of getting to know, if you're going to start with stainless steel, practice those small skills each time and your confidence will build from there.
I have to tell you guys about an amazing new service I've found called Framebridge. Framebridge makes it easier and more affordable than ever to frame your favorite things without ever leaving the house. Add a gallery wall to your home office or send an easy, foolproof gift, especially for all those weddings you have coming up. From art prints and posters to the photos sitting on your phone, you can Framebridge just about anything. So here's how it works. Just go to framebridge.com and upload your photo, or they'll send you packaging to safely mail in your physical pieces. Preview your item online in dozens of frame styles and gallery wall layouts. Choose your favorite or get free recommendations from their talented designers. The experts at Framebridge will custom frame your item and deliver your finished piece directly to your door, ready to hang. And instead of hundreds you'd pay at a framing store, their prices start at $39 and all shipping is free. Plus, my listeners will get 15% off of their first order at framebridge.com when they use my code GIRLFRIENDS. Order online at framebridge.com or stop by a Framebridge store to work with the designer in person if you're in New York, DC, Atlanta, Philly, Boston, or Chicago. I'm so excited because I have tons, and I mean tons of photos of my kids, really amazing ones that have been sitting in albums that I'm actually going to start placing on my wall. And I was super happy to send in those physical prints to Framebridge, and I'm going to get back some exciting pictures that I'll be posting on Instagram. So now it's your turn. Get started today. Frame your photos or send someone the perfect gift. Go to framebridge.com and use promo code GIRLFRIENDS to save an additional 15% off of your first order. Just go to framebridge.com, promo code GIRLFRIENDS. Framebridge.com, promo code GIRLFRIENDS. So now, Laney, when we start thinking about parenting, a large part of how we cook as parents, and those of you that are even in the guardian space, we are often cooking for not just one picky kid, but two, three, four. The numbers go on, and then picky partner, picky spouse, picky family members, or whatever be the choice. We just all have different taste and desires when it comes to our food. And it can make being in the kitchen very stressful. And there's nothing worse than having a meal that you thought you cooked that was so amazing that you enjoyed, and everyone kind of walks away and doesn't say thanks or it was good. And you're like, did you like it? Was it good? Can you
Yep.
say something? Like, what's the beat here? So
Yeah.
how do we get to a place where we can cook for everyone, confidently cook for everyone? Like, how do you do that? Because I tell you, I have a 13 and a 10, 11 year old, excuse me, Sam and Dylan. Hey kids, hope you're doing great at school. And so I have those two, and every day there's like a little anxieties that go in because I'm like, okay, he likes garlic, she doesn't like basil. This and I'm still kind of customizing. And then some days I'm just like, you're gonna eat it and be happy. I don't care. But ideally, I'd love for everyone to be happy with their food, and I'd love for it not to cost $1 trillion. So, Lainey, how do we pave the road for a really successful cooking space in that way?
It's such a great question. And I don't think that there's one answer. I mean, I wish that I was like, here's the magic answer. And I think if there was an answer, everybody would be doing it. But
Yeah.
there's not. It's different for every family. But I think there's a few things that we can think about. For me, number one, I kind of reframed my mindset a little bit. So, what's the most important thing to me? And I understand as kids get older and there's after school activities and things, it becomes harder. But sitting together as a family to eat dinner as often as possible is the most important thing, whether everybody is eating exactly the same thing or not. Not that I'm not going to go make two or three different meals, but the fact that we are able to sit down together as a family as often as we can overrides everything else for me. For me, that feels super important, and that connection, even if we're fighting, even whatever it is, we're
Yeah, do
doing
it
it, and
together. Yeah.
right, we're doing it together. So that's the number one. And I think if you were able to sit down as a family as often as you can, number one, I do believe that that fosters and encourages kids to eat and try different things. They see you eating things, you're able to model different things. And sometimes that takes a long time. My daughter, for when she was a toddler, for many years, pretty much didn't eat a fruit or vegetable. She was like salmon and cheese, like that was it. And I continue to offer. I never force. So just continuing to offer, continuing to model, and always having kind of a safe food on the table that I know they'll eat. So if I'm making, I don't know, if I'm making a dish that I know that they won't like, number one, I may try to deconstruct it because maybe they're not going to have. Um, I'm just going to use a salad as an example, but maybe they're not going to
That's a
have the
great
salad
example.
with everything in it, with the dressing, but they like tomatoes, they like cucumbers, they'll eat the nuts, and maybe they'll dip the dressing on the side. So, is there a way that I can deconstruct this meal a little bit for them so they have similar, if not the same ingredients on their plate? It's just not all together, mushed together as one. So, I deconstruct a lot of meals as much as I can. And if I need to add like a piece of bread with melted cheese on it onto their plate just to give them a little something that's safe that they know they can have. And maybe I throw an applesauce on the table. That's not making a whole nother meal, but they're being exposed to everything and we're all sitting together and it is what it is. Like I can't, it's better than fighting and forcing every single night because that also doesn't work either.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you keep it cost efficient? Like, how can we, as those who are doing the majority of the shopping, or on a regular basis? And Lainey and I also talked about Great Girlfriends, how, one week your kid likes applesauce, the next week they're like, I hate it, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, I just bought a 20 pack of this. So,
Yeah.
but how do we do the check-ins, or how do we make sure that we are keeping it efficient and that we're keeping it in sync with what our kids like and don't like?
Yeah. Getting them involved as much as possible. So even if they aren't being involved necessarily in the cooking process, maybe they can be involved. And I know it's hard if they're really, really little sometimes to drag them to the store, but get them involved in the shopping process or even just making a list. Can you sit down with your kid to like have them either write or have them dictate to you things that they do want in their lunch or things that they are excited about right now, or make a list of things that they do want for breakfast so that it's not always a guessing game. And yes, these are the things that I'm into, these are the things that I'm not. So getting them involved however you can. And in terms of keeping it kind of within budget, there's a lot of great options out there right now. But number one, if you were a meal planner, I'm not a meal planner. It's not for me, but it works for so many people. And that's a great way to keep your costs down because you're only buying what you're going to make and you're not going to overspend. Trader Joe's, even though prices are going up everywhere, I think Trader Joe's has some great options for good, affordable prices. I mean, Target has some great healthy options. Walmart has great healthy options now. Um, Thrive Market has some really good affordable prices that has like, if you're not familiar with Thrive Market, it's like a Whole Foods and Costco kind of together in one. So I get some of my favorite brands that I would get at Whole Foods for like Costco pricing. Costco also has great things. So you really can find, good healthy items in most places now. And if you're a little bit more conscious about it and kind of plan it out, I think you can save if you're just a little bit more aware.
Mhm. That's the last piece I wanna touch on is the planning part. Um, Meal prepping and planning ahead really does help, us individually and collectively to save a lot of money. It also helps us to eat more consciously and be more aware of calories and intake and dietary needs. And I think ultimately it keeps us out of drive-through lines. Sometimes it feels like basic math, other days it's like trigonometry. It's like it can be so hard and so simple. What's the best hack, as you see it, for really meal prepping consistently and successfully?
So I'm also not a meal prepper, which is not a good answer, but I'll tell you what I do and how this works for me. And I do think that it is cost, it helps save on costs and it just allows for flexibility because for me, as someone who's so passionate about food, and for someone who likes to cook on the fly, and I also think this can work for people who want to plan, but this is how I do it. So I always have my freezer stocked with the meats that we eat. So, ground turkey, ground chicken, ground beef, chicken breast, steak, whatever it is, I always have my freezer stocked. And so there's always going to be options in there. Additionally, my pantry is always stocked with things that I know that we use. So, different shapes of pasta, rice, quinoa, beans, tomato sauces, whatever things that I'm going to use over and over again for many different recipes. So, I know that I have a freezer full of proteins. I have my pantry, which is always stocked. And now, when I go to the store, I'm pretty much just getting whatever fruits and veggies or things that look good to me or that I know I'm going to use that week. And I now only go pretty much once a week, sometimes more for my job. But when I'm shopping for the house, it's really just for produce and some snacks here and there. And so now at the beginning of the week, I can pull out maybe a couple of frozen proteins, maybe some ground turkey and some chicken and a couple of steaks. And I'm not sure quite what I'm going to do with them yet, but I have some options here. Let those kind of defrost in the fridge. And now I can pull from my pantry, I can pull from the produce I got, and that's kind of how I wing it with flexibility, but also mildly planning, if that makes sense.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, so I hear, the big piece I hear from you is to use the freezer as a place to store those primary items on the plate. And that, in your case, if you're plant based, I'm not sure how that would work. But for those that are non plant based, that you would have your meats in your freezer, and then pull your weekly is dedicated to anything fresh that you want to get, be it vegetables, salads, fruits, etc. And then you're shuffling in between those things throughout the week to make sure you're incorporating the vegetables and the fruits and all the things that you've built your meal on. Okay. So now,
Exactly.
Lainey, so with that being said, how much time? Because when we're talking about our great girlfriends are super busy women who are on the go and move a lot. And so even going into the kitchen, the idea of the time used in there can be overwhelming. What's a safe amount of time that, you think we as women should or not women, but we as humans, because everyone should be a participant in the kitchen, in my opinion. But how long should we be in there for a meal? Like what's a safe amount of time? Because that I think that really does contribute to how much daily time people dedicate to either eating out or, you know,
Yep.
taking out the time.
Yep. So there are so many meals, delicious meals that you can make in 30 minutes or less. 100%. It is easy to do. And a lot of that 30 minutes can be hands off. A lot of it is just the prep time and then pop it in the oven, or the prep time, let it simmer on the stove, or dump it in the slow cooker. There's so many ways that you can get in and out of the kitchen in 30 minutes, 20 minutes, sometimes even 15 minutes if if you practice and you're with it. And sometimes it takes longer and sometimes you feel like it. Sometimes you feel like being in the kitchen and sometimes you have an hour. And but most of the time I would say on average about 30 minutes it can be done.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. This has been so helpful, Lainey. I hope that great girlfriends, as you listen, you start to pull and go, aha, that's me. Good food for thought. I can grab this. Let me revisit my stainless steel. Let me consider how I'm using it. And you even said 15 years. So you really want to buy quality products that are
Yeah.
sustainable. So we're not every year feel like your pots and pans are starting to look dingy and getting old that you're not replacing. If you buy good up front, you can have them
Yes.
for, what's the lifespan on that though, Lainey? How,
I
like
think
15,
they
is that a solid or is it
I think
more
they
than?
last forever. Honestly, like
Okay.
cast iron and stainless, if you properly take care of it, which is not
Yeah.
difficult, you can
Yeah.
have they're meant to last forever. I mean,
Okay.
I would have to look it up for sure, but I feel like my mom has had pots and pans for like 50
Uh-huh.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, mine too. I
Yeah.
actually it's crazy, the same skillet that my mom made cornbread in when I was a
Mm,
kid, she has, like, I think there's 3, one and they were from her mom. I have one here that my
I
son
love
uses
it.
to make. So I really love the legacy, and I like the heritage
Oh,
behind things you can take from your parents' kitchen that become your own, and you're able to
mhm.
pass those things over. So you're right, if you do buy quality, it can be valuable to your family's storyline, and, like, you're
Absolutely.
really able to pass it over and use it as a gifting and a wedding and all these special
Mhm.
moments. So, like, yeah, even going to
And the
college
food
or
tastes better, and, like, I
yeah.
want cornbread out of that skillet, like, I
Yeah.
want that food. It tastes different, it just does.
It's the best. It is.
It
It
is.
really she makes the absolute best cornbread on
Mhm.
earth. She always has. And then my son loves cornbread. And so
Mhm.
she gave him one of her skillets. And so, like, his cornbread is like really special. It is. It's
Oh,
kind of
I
cool.
lh that.
I
I
know.
wanna
For
try
that
I have a
reason,
really good cornbread, but I wanna try yours.
you have to try it. You have to come and try it. It's not mine. It's Sam's. It's my son's cornbread, and
I
it's
love
like the
it.
first dish he learned to cook. Because she's like, "Okay, if you love it, you got to learn to cook it." And he's like, "Okay." Turns
So
out he's
cute.
actually really good at it, and he has a cast iron skillet that he
Amazing.
uses.
I love that.
It's so cool. Well, Lainey, this has been such a pleasure. Where can our great girlfriends keep up with you?
On Instagram or TikTok at Life is But a Dish, or my website is lifeisbutadish.com. I also have a curated page just for your listeners that has some curated recipes, my top 10. There's some coupon codes for my programs if they
Ooh.
want. So I'll send that over to you.
I love, I love, I
Yeah.
love. And then you have to come over and we can do cooking with Lainey. So you can
Yes.
like come in and do some zhuzhing in my kitchen.
Oh, I would love it. It's like, that's so fun. I would love to do that anytime.
Oh, that would be amazing. Thank you so much for joining. Great girlfriends, be sure to check out this episode. Excuse me, to share this episode with all of your great girlfriends. Check out the recipes because you definitely want to have the 30 minutes or less in your pocket as like your go-to recipes. Even when you're at B&Bs, right? You're at an Airbnb and
Oh,
you're on
yeah.
vacation and maybe you all have to cook. You don't have to spend your whole day cooking. You can do a quick shuffle in the kitchen and still go out and enjoy. Or if you're just on the run like me nonstop, it doesn't feel like you're losing life in there. It just feels like you're taking the time to do what's best for your body. So definitely check out the recipes and also check out Lainey's course, Cooking with Confidence, that's been made available. It is so, rewarding for me to talk to another mom who's figuring this thing out and then sharing your gifts along the way. I'm so encouraged by your story. And thank you so much, Lainey, for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, great girlfriends. Did you enjoy this week's episode of the podcast? If so, would you please give us your amazing review on iTunes? Every single review helps another great girlfriend get plugged into the podcast and the community. Speaking of community, make sure you join our Facebook group at The Great Girlfriends, follow us on Instagram at The Great Girlfriends, and on Twitter at _great GFS. I'm Sybil and I'm out. Peace.